It's casual, not formal. It's hosted by Rory Pendlin, and Renee in tow. It's time to start the show. 1, 2, 3, go!
Hello, welcome to another episode of It's Casual. I believe this is episode 104. We just passed 100 a couple weeks ago. So I like to bring guys and girls who I did comedy with way back in the past onto the show. I mean, we have artists and we have singers and we have actors but my favorite shows are when I get to talk, shop. I get to talk, the old days, of comedy when comedy was king, with people that I used to perform with back in the and this next guy is no exception. He's been in the business a long time. Let me bring up Renee first to say hi.
Hello.
And we were trying a few minutes ago. We were trying to get something going on TikTok.
Yeah.
And that was I won't say disastrous. I mean, but
we had fun with Sandy D, didn't we? We had a lot of fun with Sandy D, and General Howitzer was there. It was kind of an extravaganza, but we're going to keep working on it. Yeah, we'll keep working on it.
But yeah, unfortunately, the host of the show, Carrie Harrison, we couldn't get him in there.
Yeah.
But we'll figure it out. It just
TikTok is a weird animal. TikTok is a very weird animal, and it's very hard to appease. You have to do certain things. It's kind of like an angry Mexican god, like one of those ancient gods. It's very angry sometimes.
Ancient Chinese god.
Yes, Chinese god, exactly.
Because it's China.
Absolutely.
China. It's China.
It's China. There you go. Exactly. So, now, there's a video that you sent, and I didn't know if you wanted to.
Again, I was talking about working with comics, and this is a clip of the person that we have on our show today that I would like to play for you.
All right, how much do you want me to play of it?
Just a minute or so.
All right, let's see.
It's only a 2-minute clip. So.
Mm-hmm.
I try to be cool, man. I try to be cool. I'm 56. My daughters are in their 20s. Try to keep up in the conversation. One thing I've noticed now, a pattern with people of a certain age group is this thing where they go, yeah. Like you'll just say, that menu is yellow. Yeah. How about just one yeah? Would that be okay? Yeah. And then they'll get really spazzed out sometimes. Yeah. Took my daughter's college friends out to dinner. There's 5 of them. I was lost in this conversation, just trying to talk to these kids and be friendly. I'm like, yeah, this bourbon tastes really good. Yeah. Right. Yeah, right. I used to drink vodka, but now I'm drinking. No. Yeah, no. Right. Yeah, no. What? Do you agree or disagree with me? Yeah, no. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah, right. Oh, and then there's this one. Gotcha. These wings are delicious. Gotcha. And then there's one different thing that they do where you just make some statement. I think ABBA is the greatest musical band of all time. Same. Let's get the one word. Same. Yeah, right. Gotcha. Oh, no, this one. Cool. It's like they're so used to typing words out on their phone that when they actually have to make words with their mouth, they get all confused and just repeat them over and over. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Cool. Yeah, gotcha. And I'm trying to stay in the conversation, so I'm just repeating like random words. Kitty. Mow. Diddly.
So, okay, let's bring him up without further delay, Mr. Mike Nilsson.
Hey,
There he is.
Yeah. Cool. Same.
Yes,
We're all
yes.
gonna
And
be
Gary
doing-
Goldman is now doing a yeah no bit that's very similar, a little bit similar to that, and of course infinitely funnier than mine. But that was 2020, so I was a pioneering trailblazer back then. That was actually right before the that was probably the last bunch of shows I did before the pandemic.
Yeah, it said February, and March was pretty much when they
Yeah.
locked everything down. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a fun engagement that I had. But hey, nice to see you, Rory.
Yeah, it's great to see you, man.
And Renee. We haven't met officially, but Rory, I think the last time I saw you, we were in Columbus at the room that was in the Ramada Inn. It was north of Columbus. Did you work that gig with me?
How do you remember all that?
You know what? I remember a lot of stuff. I have it, and because I talk to old comedian friends of mine, and I'll bring up very specific things that were said. Like, we're allowed to cuss on here, right?
Yes.
Okay, so like Vinny Montello, you know Vinny.
Yeah, Vinny. Yeah.
One of my best friends, and we still talk on a regular basis. And I just, something that he said 100 years ago pops into my head, and I'll call him up and I'll go, hey, remember when you called that guy a dumb country fuck when we were in South Carolina? Because we did a lot of gigs together. And he's like, no, I have no memory of that. And I said, well, you called somebody a dumb country fuck. That should be something that would stay in your up there in the brain pan.
Happens so often, you know.
Yes. Well, and we were in
Columbus.
I don't think this is really pertinent to anything, but it was Tom Sobel booked the gig, and it was in the lounge of the Ramada Inn, so those were always fun.
Yeah.
But Tom used to book the club that is now the Funny Bone in Columbus, which is a great club. So Tom lost that club, and it became something. A place that won't book me now. So it was. I pine for the old days.
Yeah, well, and again, Ward Smith used to joke about some places you play at, they just kick the cord out of from the jukebox out of the wall and go ahead, be funny.
Oh yeah, yeah. And in that same vein, my theory was that karaoke killed comedy. And I did something, I don't know, about 2 years ago maybe. There was some fundraiser I went to where they were doing karaoke. And I had never done it. I hated it so much because of the symbolism of what it represented.
It's the principle.
The backstory is that I was playing a club in Wisconsin years ago, in the early 90s probably. And they can't remember. Yeah, so they had the karaoke before the comedy. So I come down, it's almost showtime. I come down, and this place is busting out. Everybody's screaming and yelling. There's a big burly guy up there singing Staying Alive with the accurate falsetto and everything. And then it's like, okay, karaoke's over now. Here's the comedy show. And half the room walked out, and the ones that stayed just were wishing there was more karaoke. So to me, that kind of represented the death knell of the comedy wave. I'm mixing my metaphors, but people refer to the different waves.
Yeah.
And I feel like something around 92, whatever was big in the 80s, tapered off during that period.
Yeah, around 92, 93, was when you started to see clubs starting to close. And back when we started doing comedy, and again, we first worked together at the Comedy Corner in Tampa.
Yep.
That was 88. That was one of the waves. There was a lot of specials on HBO and Showtime, comedy specials and stuff. And again, there was like 4 or 5 clubs in every town.
Oh yeah.
But then, like you said, in 92, 93, something happened. Some of the circuits still kept rooms open, but a lot of rooms closed down, and there was like a fourth of the work, if not less,
right.
The comics out there.
Yeah, I quit the road in 93.
Yeah.
So I was on the road full time from 1985 to 1993.
Okay.
So I feel like I got out at the right time. It was a really hard decision.
Mm-hmm.
I had gotten married. We just bought a house, and my wife just kind of laid it on the line. She's like, look, bro, where's this going? Because, I was enjoying myself, but somebody canceled me. Somebody canceled me at the last minute, canceled my booking.
Yeah.
I mean, I had my suitcase and I was standing outside of my door getting ready to go to the airport. And I get a phone call, we double booked it or some bullshit like that. And so I lost that whole week of work. And that was sort of, again, you read the tea leaves. And for me personally, it was the right time. And now it's been, almost 30 years since that all happened. And I landed well. I landed.
Good.
It was a little bit bumpy. Anyway, I could go on.
Okay. Well, we have time.
Well, and I do have my movies rated. All the Best Picture nominees. I tried to rate them 1 to 10, so we can start on that if that's good. Is that this show? The movie show?
That's the other show, actually. Two guys in
it. All right.
Renee is the gal that sometimes talks movies with us.
Okay. Well, I am very proud of myself because I've seen all of the Best Picture nominees. So,
Excellent.
if you want to know, I picked Anatomy of a Fall as my favorite of the nominees. Very good movie.
I'll have to check it out. This week I will be watching 40 Denzel Washington movies to get ready for next Monday.
All right, that's cool.
So we can pick our top 5 and mention honorable mentions.
Yes.
So you said comedy started for you in '85?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did that go about?
Well, since you're a Florida comic,
you
will appreciate this. So I was in high school and I graduated. I lived on Long Island.
Mm-hmm.
I was 18, graduated high school. A week after my graduation, I did my very first open mic up there on Long Island. And it went okay. How open you first open mic? I mean, so it went well enough that I decided to go back. Right.
Yeah.
So I did a couple of
Was
those.
it a dare?
What's that?
Did somebody dare you? Was it a dare?
No. I was locked in, man. I wanted to do it because while I was in high school, I was doing theater, I was doing radio, I was writing for the newspaper. So all the creative juices were flowing. And I was really inspired by Steve Martin when I was about 15.
Yeah.
So that just stayed with me. Like, this is what I want to do. And, I thought you had to be like Steve Martin and dress funny and have props and everything. But
and he made it look so easy.
Well, yeah.
But he was brilliant, but he made it look so easy.
Oh, yeah.
Like so many comics said the same thing. Oh, I can do that.
Sure. Yeah. And in his early days in San Francisco, he would do shows in the afternoon. I don't know if you read his book, Born Standing Up, but it's like they had the doors of the club open onto the sidewalk, and he'd be on stage and people would just be walking by on the sidewalk and they kind of wander in and look at him and then they walk back out. Afternoon shows. But, it's things like that give you the chops. But so my parents moved to Dunedin, Florida, that summer of '82.
Yeah.
And I was pretty devastated because I had done a few other open mics and I was into doing stand-up. When I got to Florida, there was one club in the whole state. It was the Comic Strip in West Palm.
Oh, man.
Where Brian Regan started out.
Okay.
So I did not go there. I didn't want to drive 5 hours to do an open mic.
Mm-hmm.
But then Giggles opened up in Sarasota, John Cochran's club.
Okay.
Which he later opened a club in Tampa, started out in Sarasota. So that was 2 hours away. And I was willing to do that.
That was doable.
I just had that hankering. I had to get up there. So I would drive 2 hours. I think I did that 2 or 3 times. Then they opened Giggles in Tampa, which was, across the bay from where I lived.
Right.
And so, it slowly started to build. But the club that was kind of my home base was a place in the Countryside Mall. You may have heard about this club. It was called Kisses Comedy Club. And it had like lipstick marks all over the wall. And it was inside the mall. And there were things about it that were just really funky. One thing was that if the mall turned the air conditioning off at, whatever time they closed, well, the air conditioning in Kisses Comedy Club turned off too. So, you know, we're in there and it's, you know, summertime in Florida and we're
Right.
just, dripping in sweat, but stuff, you know, but so at this club, and this was, you know, it was away from Tampa. So it was
So
like
yeah, you
small.
get a crowd of people together. The body heat brings the temperature up.
Well, yeah, there's
Wow.
that too. But this club, like I said, it was kind of away from Tampa. So it was more of a small, I don't want to say small town, but it was a smaller community.
Mhm.
But it was Ron Bennington. He was the host of all the
Right.
shows.
Ron
Ron
Bennington
hosted the
Comedy
shows.
Center.
And then, you know, Tommy Blaze was living down there at the time. Brian Regan, I think Brian came up and worked a weekend at this club, came up
Yeah.
from West Palm.
Yes.
Dan Whitney came.
Yes.
I don't know if he came to Kisses, but and if people that are watching and listening don't know who Dan Whitney is, do you think that, I mean, he's Larry the Cable Guy.
Yeah,
So-
he's Larry the Cable Guy.
and
We've
he's-
talked about him on the show before.
Okay.
Yeah, with other
Right.
comics.
Okay, sure. So these professional comics started coming to this club, this little weekend in Clearwater. And then after a while, some of these guys were like, hey man, you're good enough, you could work the road. And I'd never had that as a goal. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it meant, but just, you know, making connections with a few people got me to where in 1985, I was on the road. I drove to Rochester. I drove from Clearwater to Rochester in February. But
Now, you started as an opener or a feature?
I was the opening act the first couple of shows that I did. So these were like actual comedy clubs, though.
Right.
And then mixed in with those, I kind of cut my teeth on a lot of really small one-nighters where it's a two-man show and people get pissed when you turn the ball game off. And you know, it's that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I did that for 8 years, and then, like I said, in '93 I came off, and I did get a day job, but I never stopped doing stand-up.
Right.
So I don't even really like it that much anymore. I don't enjoy it. I you know, if you want to pick my brain about it, I could tell you some stuff. Right, exactly. So.
Again, the people you have to deal with and the trouble you have to go through to get to gigs and the stuff that they don't give you anymore, you know, like the free and the rooms and the stuff. Yeah, it's just not worth it anymore.
Well, and I am a very positive person, so I don't want to be one of those comics who says, well, the industry has changed so much that, you know, it is what it is now. It's not going to change because of me or you or anybody else.
Yeah.
But what I do is I'll go do a gig if I get offered a gig. So got one coming up in a couple of weeks out here in Kentucky. And interestingly, back in December,
Lexington?
No, the one I'm doing in a couple of weeks is Brandenburg, Kentucky.
Oh.
Yeah. So, but I think it's like a golf and tennis club party.
Oh,
thing.
okay. All right.
So,
Looks like a private gig.
but it's good money.
Yeah. Private gig, good money.
Yeah. So in December, I did a show in Frankfurt. It was supposed to be a 3-night gig, and they changed it to just one night and dropped the money. So it was only one show, and I had not been on stage. I kid you not. I had not been on stage since like January of 23. So, you know, I don't think I was nervous, but as soon as I got up there, man, it's like all the gears are turning and everything's clicking, and it's you know, it kind of pisses me off that it's that easy for me, because then I'm like, after those shows, I'm driving home going, you know, I'm pretty good at this. Maybe I should, you know. And then it's the really cool thing. Yeah. Well, the club closed 3 weeks after I had been there for the third week they were open, so it didn't last very long. But Frankfort, Kentucky is not a show business destination for anybody. The thing that's fun, interesting for me is I do go to open mics now here in Louisville.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm not opposed to getting up for 5 minutes and trying out some new jokes. And I love talking to the younger comics because they'll go, how long you been doing this? And I go, 42 years. You know, and it's like, because I officially started in '82, so that's what I count as my starting point. And they just kind of look at me and go, "Wow," you know, like I don't think these kids know how to process something like that. Because when we started in the '80s, if you had met somebody in 1982 who had been doing comedy for 42 years, he would have been doing stand-up in 1940, which didn't really exist. So.
It would have been Shecky Green.
Well, sure. There were old timers. There were old timers in Florida when I started. Yeah, there were guys, you know, that were probably in their 40s or 50s, and we were like, "Holy shit! Look how old that guy is!" You know.
So you're now in Louisville. You're based in Louisville now.
I live in Louisville, Kentucky. I've lived here since 1988.
Oh wow!
Wow!
I thought you were. I sound like Owen Wilson. Wow! I thought you were a comic.
No, I left there. I met my wife here.
Kevin Rogers and Lou Angel Wolf and
I was in that pack. I was in that group. Yeah, I was. And as a matter of fact, when I got married in 1991, I had Lou in my wedding party along with Tom Rhodes, Kevin Rogers, Vinnie Montello. You know, it was cool.
I'm talking to Rhodes now, trying to get him on It's Casual. He's almost there. He's about there.
Okay. Well, I saw him in Amsterdam. So I don't know if you saw where I put that up on Facebook, but all right, I'll tell you that story. So Tom and I have been friends since he started out as an open micer in Orlando. And so we were both kind of even at the beginning, even keel. And then, you know, sometime whenever he got on MTV or whatever, it was like, I'm going here and he's going here, which, you know, he's still my buddy. And, you know, so over the years, our friendship has kind of had peaks and valleys. And I've also seen his career have a lot of peaks and valleys.
Yeah.
But we had this trip planned to go to Europe for my 60th birthday, which was back in November. So we went to Ireland and Amsterdam and London. So just so happens, like the week before we fly out there, Tom's put something on social media. It's like, these are some dates I got coming up. And he's in Amsterdam like the day we're there. So I sent him a text message and I said, where are you playing in Amsterdam? Asking for a friend. Because I didn't want to let him know I was going to be there. I wanted to surprise him.
Right.
So our first night in Amsterdam, we had dinner. The girls went back to where we were staying. And I walked, I don't know, 3 or 4 miles just because I like to walk to get to this place called the Comedy Cafe in Amsterdam. And there's a couple of comics milling around out in front of the place. And I was like, hey, do you guys know, is Tom Rhodes here yet? And the guy's like, oh, yeah, you want me to go get him? So he goes in and Tom comes out and it's like, oh, my God. So I really surprised him.
Yeah.
And it was great to see him. He was focused on doing the show, which was like 5 Dutch comics with a Dutch-speaking audience. And then they take a break. This is how they do shows over there. They take a break. The MC does 20 minutes in Dutch. And then they introduce Tom. And he does a half an hour in English.
Right.
So, you know, he used to have a variety show on TV over in Amsterdam. So the guy brought him up and he's like, hey, anybody remember the show? Blah, blah, whatever it was called. And nobody, no reaction whatsoever.
Oh,
he's like, this guy was the host of the show. And here he is, Tom Rhodes. So I could tell you about the set and how much it impressed me because it was rough going at first because of the language thing. You know, I mean, most of these people speak English, but comedy, the nuances of it and the slang and the timing of how you present the verbal package pretty much to the audience, it's different. So he got him by the end of the set.
Oh, awesome.
And we're both sober now. So after the show, I was like, all right, man, I'm going to get going. Plus I had my wife and daughters with me. So, but you know, it was great to see him and it was a full packed out room on a Saturday night, and that was encouraging to me
Yeah.
because you don't see that all the time around here. So yeah, it was good.
That sounds great. Again, I was hoping to see him when I lived in China for 15 years, and he
Right.
kept going over there
Sure.
and going to Thailand and different places in Asia.
Mhm.
And I'm watching one of his specials, one of his TV specials, and at the end they show Rich Hall is working on the crew
Right.
of the show.
Yep.
So Rich Hall was there.
Okay.
I think this was
Well,
Thailand when he did Thailand, but I
right.
never, I didn't get to see him in Hong Kong or Shenzhen.
Yeah.
I don't think he can. If he'd come to Shenzhen, I definitely would have seen him. But I think he did Beijing and Shanghai and Hong Kong. And Steve Anderson was there
Yep.
teaching
Okay.
English to me.
Sure.
And he had hoped to catch up with Rhodes, but unfortunately, it just never happened.
Well, yeah. I mean, the places he goes, I mean, that's the niche. And then I guess now more and more he's talking about it in his shows. Hey, I was in, Switzerland, and I did this, and then I was in South America, and.
I think when he was one time when he was scheduled to be in Hong Kong, we were going to go see him in Hong Kong, and they canceled the show.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So.
Well, I think a lot of his shows are, when he goes international, he'll just jump up on a platform somewhere and start telling jokes. It's always in English. He doesn't know any other languages.
Right.
But there's enough English-speaking people that would
there's enough expats there that
be interested. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was great to see him, and then that whole trip was amazing. But the guys, that core group, I'm still very friendly with those guys, and talk to Kevin on a pretty regular basis. What's interesting is that I started a cover band,
right,
back in 2016.
The Non-Essentials.
The Non-Essentials, and Kevin was really digging the fact that I was doing that, and he thought it was really cool. So
that is
of
cool.
course, the next time I spoke, I mean, I don't want to say the next time, but probably sometime around 2019, he had a cover band. And he's like, well, we're not as good as you and your guys. So that was a nice compliment.
Yeah.
But yeah.
What was the name of his band?
What's that?
What was the name of his band? Do you remember?
Oh, I have no idea. I think it was in St. It was in St.
You remember clubs that have lipstick on them?
Yeah. Well, it was in St. Pete. And it was it was all parents of kids that were taking music lessons from some studio. So that's how he got these people together. But Kevin does these marketing presentations where he'll call it like St. Pete Live or something. And then at the end of all the classes and stuff, there'll be a big party. And then here comes Kevin dressed like Jim Morrison with his leather hat and doing his thing, And I have had people ask me, what's different? What's different about being a lead singer compared to being a comedian?
Yeah. And
first of all, just the feeling, I don't want to call it a feeling of power, but to stand up there, because we're really loud, so to stand up there and have drums and bass and guitar, it's a really cool feeling.
Yeah.
But the best part about it is, I don't give a shit if people are listening to me or not. Where with stand-up, you have to sit there and stress out and worry about all the people who are in this room that aren't laughing at me.
Right.
That's the mind fuck of the whole thing. It's
a real energy sucker. Yeah.
Yeah. So you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And yeah. So I do have fun with the stand-up, but I think I'm having more fun with the band.
I felt the same way when about the time that I stopped doing stand up full time. I started singing, and I enjoyed the singing in front of crowds. I was doing an Orbison show on a cruise ship for a little while.
Oh, awesome!
And I've been doing some Elvis and Sinatra and others as well. But yeah, I enjoyed that more because you're giving the crowd what they want.
Yeah.
Well, and here's a classic example. We were playing at Bonkers one night, and Rhodes came in to do a guest set,
Right.
And it was a bunch of bikers.
Uh-huh.
And he gets up on stage, and he's not killing it with them. They're fuck, they're
Right.
just yelling at him and screaming and throwing stuff. Well, I don't think they were throwing stuff, but it was a rowdy bunch. And I was the headliner that night, and I went up on stage after he came off. He did his guest set before my set.
Yeah.
And he just didn't connect with him.
Right.
And so unfortunately, I went up, and the first thing out of my mouth was, "Tom Rhodes, ladies and gentlemen, Tom Rhodes, fag." Anyway.
Oh, okay.
And they were like, "Yeah."
Yeah, you got them
started
locked
doing
in.
cartoon voices, and I had him from that moment on. And I know that just crushed him. That was just a terrible mind fuck.
Well, Bonkers, how many years ago was that? Bonkers hadn't even been there. Are they gone now?
Bonkers is still, big in.
Still in Orlando?
Yeah, they're still in Orlando. They've got a couple of clubs, I think. So,
okay.
But anyway, I mean, but then again, I go around and I work for Larry Silver, Groucho's comedy, where I usually kill. And, one night, you get a crowd that's just not going with your stuff at all. I'm doing the voices and I'm getting nothing, crickets.
Yeah.
And so I start to get angry with them. Oh, no. Don't placate me now.
Right. Well, and my thing.
But with singing, you always get applause.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. Compared to, right.
Yeah.
My thing with the stand-up, too, is I'm trying to find commonality in the material I'm doing, but it's mostly about being an old white guy, So I had 2 African-American women walk out of a show I was doing. That was an open. It was an open mic. That was the worst part. But I said something. I think it was a bit I was doing about the Hall of Presidents, where like you have all the presidents on stage, and then one day somebody comes in with a 2-wheel dolly and plonks down this Barack Obama animatronic president. And I think the joke was like Rutherford B. Hayes turns to Thomas Jefferson, because they had them all mixed in.
Right.
And it's like, oh shit, there goes the neighborhood, or something like that, So it was really a dig on the white guys, but the fact that I even made a joke that had that kind of a context, people, these 2 women, and I mean, there couldn't have been more than 15 or 20 people in the room.
Yeah.
These 2 women, and that was the first time I ever walked anybody, because my show is not offensive and it's not extreme in any way. Mm-hmm. So that kind of hurt me, I was like, but then
as I walked in, did I say something wrong?
Well, I did have those are my dogs. I did have I spoke at Tom Sobel's funeral back in August. So for people that don't know, Tom Sobel was an icon of the road comedy business. He was a booker and agent, and he was just a larger than life personality. And unfortunately, he got really sick at the beginning of 23, passed away in August. And they had a roster of people. I think it was probably 7 or 8 people that spoke at the funeral. And Tom's brother, Chip, put all these people, and everybody had sort of a theme of what they were talking about and how it had to do with Tom. So mine was near the end, and it went great, eulogies. Who knew, So I'm getting laughs, and I'm doing
captive audience.
And I look out, and these 2 people in the back of the room get up and start walking out. And I go, am I walking people at a funeral? And that got the biggest laugh. But later on, somebody came up to me and said, yeah, they had to catch a flight. And I was like,
no,
yeah.
Still got the biggest laugh, though.
I got the big laugh, yeah. So just getting back to Louisville, if you don't mind me talking about this part of my life. So came here in 88, met my wife, who I actually had met previously down in Fort Myers, of all places, when I was doing shows with Vinny. And then in Louisville, we met that week we spent together. It was just, you know how it is. The fireworks are happening. So I moved here in June of '89. I mean, I was like, I'll go there, you know? So I've been here ever since. So I went from Long Island to Tampa to Kentucky. But I love it here because it's the unexpected aspect of it. People don't really know what happens here. They don't know what the culture is like. So when they show up here and they see how cool it is, they go, "Oh, all right, I get it." So and our art scene is just, you know, off the charts.
Yeah, culturally, it's like Atlanta.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, yeah, I mean, I'm sure other cities are right at that same level. But I guess considering that, I mean, I grew up with Hee Haw on TV. Remember that show?
Yes, my dad loved that show. We used to watch it all the time.
Yes, that's the first time I ever saw Dolly Parton on TV. So it made an impression. But I seriously believed that everywhere outside of, you know, once you got past New Jersey, it was Hee Haw. So when I started doing gigs, in the South, I started realizing how cool some of these places are. So we have bourbon, we have horse racing,
yeah,
we have beautiful women. We used to have Brown and Williamson cigarette company, but that's gone now. And great food, and you know, so there's a lot of cool shit going on. And the thing that I did in 22 that I hadn't done since high school is I was in a play, which was Guys and Dolls, right? So I think everybody in the world everybody in the world probably did Guys and Dolls in high school. But the woman that was directing it is a friend of my wife and myself. Mm-hmm. And so I tried out for the play and they gave me a part, right?
Yeah.
So the trio of guys at the beginning of the show got the horse right here. I was the third guy.
Right.
Rusty Charlie. And then I got to be in all the numbers and do the dancing and the whole thing.
Now, was that Stubby K in the movie?
No, Stubby K played Nicely Johnson.
Oh, okay.
So that was the part that I wanted because in high school, I didn't get that part. In high school, I played Harry the horse. So these are all different Runyon characters that are in the show. So now it's 2022, mm-hmm. and I'm 58 years old, and I'm doing theater, and it was really cool. And then last year, I got wind that they were the same production, same theater company was doing the Addams Family musical. So I didn't have to try out for that. They just needed guys. So I had just kind of a chorus type role in that one.
Okay.
In both of the shows, I mean, the experience of being up there doing the show in front of the audience is amazing. But the amount of work that you have to do, that you have to put in to get there with rehearsals and everything is a lot. It's pretty grueling at my age. And also, you know, I got a wife, you know, I don't want to be missing out on all of this family time because I got to go, you know, learn how to do I can't even remember the dance moves. I was the worst dancer, but yeah, so I'm kind of spreading out and doing lots of stuff that I am really enjoying. I mean, I think when you're a stand-up comic and if that, I mean, somebody like Tom, let's take him as an example. He's been doing that one job for 40 years.
Yeah.
And he probably still has the same philosophy that he had and that you and I had in the late 80s. It's like, I'm a rock star, buddy. You know, I have the coolest job in the world. Yeah. And I am just, you know, setting the world on fire with this thing that I do. And everybody else can suck it, you know, everybody else, you know, the thing about citizens, Tom referred to this recently. He's like, yeah, you know, the citizens, that's people who aren't stand-up comics. You have that feeling of superiority. So I think all those years I was trying to be a narcissist, and I'm the complete opposite of a narcissist. So in order to be a really good stand-up comic, it's just you. You're not collaborating with anybody. It's just you. but
Right.
you got to have the shit and you got to walk the walk. So the fact that I've been able to get into these other things, and I'm like, well, this is great. Why haven't I been doing this for, a long time? Now that I'm 60, I'm like, shit, I got to try to squeeze all this stuff in, Also, I sing in a choir.
Older than you, but actually I'm turning 60 in about 2 weeks. So
Oh, okay. We can talk about that too.
I knew we were
yeah. Well, I have this guy down here, and that picture I sent you where I'm on stage, like doing the side eye. It's like this. I call it the under chin, and I have about 10 minutes of material on this guy right here. But other than that, and the hair loss, I'm holding up pretty good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I also joined a choir right before I started the band. So I go to this Methodist church and made friends with several people that were in the choir, and they were like, and I just asked them, how do you do this? And they said, well, you come to practice once a week, and then you come to church on Sunday. And they didn't audition me or anything. I'm not a very good singer, considering I'm a lead singer.
You're your own band.
Well, yeah. So did Mick Jagger. Yeah. So I joined a Methodist choir, and I wrote a bit about this too, which was funny because all the people, I invited a bunch of people. You know how you do when you do a show, you kind of blast it out there, and all these people came to. People from choir came to the show, and I was doing a bit about how close together you have to stand with all these old men in this, cramped environment. And there's something about, I come from Northern European lineage, and I have personal space issues, and I just don't need some old guy with bad breath. As a matter of fact, there's old guys with bad breath all around me, so I'm crammed in. And we're singing "Breathe on Me, Breath of God," which is a thing we really sing. And so anyway, that's kind of the nature of the bit. And
went back to rehearsal, and they all smelled like mouthwash.
Well, no, actually, it was they came up to me after the show, and they're like, "Who are you talking about?"
Oh,
and I said something like, "Don't worry, it wasn't you," but one of them actually was one of the guys, one of the bad breath guys, but. Then COVID happened, and I'm like, shit, I guess I cursed the whole thing because now we can't sing at all. And then we started, let's see, we got a comment here. I can talk about that. So during COVID, we've been, nobody did anything for 6 months. And then when we started going back to having choir, we all had to sing with masks on, which is ridiculous. And these people still like me in spite of the fact. Yeah. But yeah, that's a fun thing. So let's see this guy's question here. David, can you speak on you get nice people commenting on here.
Yeah.
Can you speak on the humility and being able to poke fun at yourself on stage? I think it's a great thing. Oh, it went away. Anyway, you want to talk about that? Making fun of yourself or poking fun at yourself?
Deprivational comedy, yeah, is a thing. Woody Allen and Rodney Dangerfield, and
right. And I mean, I think everybody when they start, they get up on stage and they go, "I know, I look like a cross between blah blah and blah blah," So you're making a joke about your appearance that puts the crowd at ease because they're sitting there thinking this guy looks like, Fonzie crossed with whatever. Breathe on me, bad breath of old guys. See, that's funny too. But I also think that you can't go down that road for too long, this self-deprecating thing.
Right.
Because you also want to exhibit an aura of control and professionalism, and you're the man, and you don't want to make yourself too vulnerable, I guess is what I'm
okay.
But as far as being humble, yeah, it makes people relate. Thank you, David. And that's something that I kind of referred to earlier about commonality and relevance with today, me doing stand-up in 2024, is that when I go up at a club, we got a couple of good clubs here in town, and I would say 75% of the people in the audience are like under 30, because that's who goes out. People my age don't go out. My age and your age don't go out.
The 80s and 90s too. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So I'm trying to talk about CPAP, and I'm trying to talk about all my medications and all this stuff. And I don't know if I got this pen over here. It's so funny. I found this the other day. Oh shoot. Well, it's a pen like this, right? But it's got Velcro around here. So the bit is like, I used to be really rowdy, dangerous. I had long hair, I wore a leather jacket. I was a rebel, I was this rebellious young guy. And, I'm not like that anymore, except the other day I stole this pen from the tube at CVS when I was picking up my medications, which, and it has the actual thing. So that's the only prop I've ever done. I don't know if I answered the guy's question, but finding the commonality, right? So if I'm up there talking about a CPAP, these people that are under 30, either they don't get it or they're like, well, that's something my dad has, so it's not necessarily that you're connecting with those people, but the bits are funny enough, you hope, that you're still going to get laughs, and maybe the 25% of older people. And I'm not saying my whole act is like that, but I was thinking about impressions because I knew I was coming on with you. And for a while, I guess it was in 2020 when I started doing this bit about Axl Rose. I don't know if you saw any of those clips. So the joke is that they play cool music at the grocery store now. So I walked we have Kroger here. So I walked into Kroger and it was like, you know where you are. So I do the whole Axl Rose thing. It's a great way to open the show to open my set, because it really catches people off guard because I'm doing it. I'm doing the thing. You're in the jungle, baby. So the joke is, you're in the jungle, you're going to die are the lyrics to the song. And, I'm like, well, I'm not sure if that's what the message Kroger wants to be sending to its customers. You're going to die. But I guess if I'm going to die, I'm going to get all those bacon bits off the salad bar. So it was something like that. And then later on in the set, I don't know, I'll do something. And it's like, oh, yeah, that's my other impression. Axl Rose and then that. So it's funny because I really don't do any impressions. I do Al April. Have you had Al April on here?
Al April. No, I got to get him to come on your show because everybody needs to meet Al April.
Yes. Well,
he just had a birthday.
Yeah. How old is he now?
Oh, gosh. I guess he's in his 80s.
Yeah. He ages well, though. He stays active and So when I started, getting back to the early days in Florida, when I went to the place in Sarasota, that was Giggles, Al April was the house MC at that club.
Oh, okay.
And then when he moved it to Tampa, Al April, he was, he hosted the open mic night. And he was so great because he would introduce people, and every comic that after he would bring them off, he would make a little quip about that guy. So he'd go, Mike Nilsson, right there, Mike Nilsson. The spectacles on the schnoz of smiles or something, because I wore glasses. So everybody had a little thing, but the bits that he did were so funny. Up against the chartreuse hickory wall at Granddad's Canadian Club with toys. So my dogs like the Al April impression. But I did a show here in Louisville. This was probably, 20 years ago. And Al was the headliner. And I went up before him. And I had invited a whole bunch of people from this day job situation that I had at the time. I was basically working in a warehouse. So these people were pretty blue collar, So I finished my set. and I'm out in the lounge while Al's on stage, and Tom Sobel, the owner of the club, comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, Mike, you brought these people in. There's like 8 of them. They're in the back of the room. They're kind of ruining the show." So they were hooting and hollering and screaming and Al's show is very quiet. It's not like, you can't really fight that. So I'm like, "Well, what do you want me to do, Tom?" He goes, "Well, you should go over there and ask them to shut the fuck up."
Well, you should go over
Oh, Mike, I think you should
go over there.
So
I didn't tell them.
I've never had to do that in my life. I don't go in the audience and tell people stuff.
Jeez.
So I go over and there's this one guy, and they're all like, and they're going nuts. They're just sitting there going, "Ah!" And Al is still on stage trying to do these very subtle jokes, subtle, quiet jokes. So the one guy goes, "Hey, Mike, you were really funny." And he goes, "We all took acid on the way here, and it kicked in right after you were done." So that's why they were ruining the show, was they were all tripping during an Al April performance.
That's surreal right there. Tripping during an Al April set.
Those things do not go together. So tell me about you turning 60. When is that going to happen?
17th. I'll be 60.
Okay. Oh, coming right up.
And again, I'm very happy how I look at 60.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm definitely going to be talking about that on social media that day for sure.
Yeah, I think I had
white hair.
Sure.
He had his nose broken in the Navy a couple of times, so he had a big nose. I'm just real lucky.
Yeah. Well,
and I know
I wasn't dreading it. I wasn't dreading it at all, and I don't feel badly about it. And the fact that we got to have this cool trip. I mean, we went to when we were in Amsterdam, we stayed on a canal boat because there was an episode of Ted Lasso where the woman that's involved with the team falls in the canal and some guy brings her onto his boat. And so you can stay like Airbnb in a canal, in a boat on the canal.
Oh, wow.
So we did that. And then in Ireland, we went and sort of found the town that my ancestors emigrated from in Northern Ireland. And that was cool. And then when we were in London, we did a Jack the Ripper tour with a guy who was amazing and funny. We did a Chelsea rock and roll tour. So it's like, over here, the Stones had their first practice. And over here, David Bowie recorded Ziggy Stardust. I mean, it was just great. The whole trip was about me. That's why it was so great. I mean, part of the reason it was so great. So my wife, I didn't mention my daughters are 28 and 25. So, they're just amazing. And they kind of put the whole thing together. I'm going to cry now. They put the whole thing together and it was beautiful. So, that was my entry into being 60 years old.
When fatherhood comes, it completely changes your life and your look on life. I totally get that.
Sure.
I have an 18-year-old daughter too, and she's just
okay.
My whole world revolves around her now.
Right.
But I'm a huge art lover. So when you said art, in you'll have to tell me which museums you have there.
Here in Louisville.
Yeah.
Well, you should definitely come visit.
I did the Rish Museum and the Van Gogh, which is right. I mean, they're like you walk like across a stretch of grass there, and you're right there. Rish Museum, great. Van Gogh Museum,
Well,
not his best stuff.
Well, what we did when we were in Amsterdam, we were stupid. Everything was sold out. We couldn't go to the Anne Frank house. We couldn't go to any of the museums. I mean, we still had a great time. But my daughter, genius, she gets online and figures out or learns that there is a Van Gogh experience in London. So this Van Gogh experience was traveling all around the world. And
is
it's
that
basically
the video
like
where you're in the paintings?
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, they had it here. I have not done it yet because
you got to check it out.
Once.
Well, the fact that we missed Van Gogh, when we were in Holland, it made up for it by having this experience in London. And yeah, it was just great.
Yeah, I actually photographed the first floor. I photograph collections when I go to museums, so people don't want to
Okay.
know because I'm just going down the line and I'm just
Sure.
photographing everything. And
Yeah.
the whole first floor and like a tenth of the second floor before somebody came up to me and said, "You're not allowed to take pictures."
Oh yeah, that happened to me in Barcelona. Yeah, they have a
So
they have a Picasso museum in Barcelona. That's the only
Yeah.
other Europe trip that we took. And this is my daughter. She's like, "Dad, stop taking pictures." That was pretty funny.
yeah, it happened to me again at the Frick in New York.
Okay.
They taking pictures and they almost threw me out.
Right. Well, I guess it's frowned upon.
I paid $20 to see this collection, and it's just so, and you're not letting me take pictures.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've got this in high res on my
I was
desktop background. Yeah.
I was respectful. I didn't say that, but
Well,
I thought
if you're ever here in Louisville, of
Yeah.
course, I would take you around and show you everything. But we have the Speed Museum. You don't have to be on speed to get into the museum, but you know,
Speed
it might.
Museum.
It might.
It's now April set.
Yeah. The stinging, slinging, slow, comfortable screw.
We have
We
got to
could
get him on this
sit in the
show.
back of the room and do him. We would do impressions of him.
I'm sending him this video because we
Sure.
talked.
Yeah. Well, Al and I did a show.
It's a Tom Rhodes too.
I think
And
we did a
anyone-
private show somewhere.
3 guys I haven't had on the show yet.
Okay. Yeah. Tell them, if Nilsson can do it, there's no reason the rest of you all can't do it. Now, one thing I would like to propose in the future is to have Vinny and myself on here.
Okay.
Because the two of us, I've been told, there's no one funnier. I mean, that's an exaggeration, but
He's a pretty funny guy.
he is very funny, and he is the same Vinny that we all knew back then. And I could do a psychological profile on why he is the way he is, but it would be a fun, and we'd be stepping all over each other's, words. But
What can you
that would
tell
be,
me about Vinny Montello?
yep. Yeah, he lives in North Carolina now, and he lives on a golf course, and Tommy Blaze lives on the same golf course
Oh, very cool.
outside of Raleigh. Yeah.
Blake. God, I haven't heard that name in so long. Tommy
Yeah.
Blake.
I don't know if any of these people are still doing stand-up, but
Is this thing on?
yep. Yeah, whenever Lou and I get together, I always ask him about names of guys. I bring up a name of a guy. Whatever happened to James Iacovelli or whatever these guys' names are? And he knows. He goes, "Oh, he's still around, kid. Yeah."
So who do you go to find out where everybody is?
Who do I what?
Who do you talk to find out where everybody is? And
Oh,
what they're-
Lou, Angel Wolf.
Lou. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like when I lived down there for 6 years, and most of that time I was doing stand-up. So I made friends with a lot of people.
Yeah.
Dan Chapello, remember Dan?
Yeah, Danny.
He
Yeah.
passed away.
No.
Oh, here we go. Oh, you didn't know Dan passed away?
I didn't know Dan passed away.
Yeah, I think it was about 5 years ago, and he went through a really hard. He was really down on his luck, and I guess he just got sick, and
I talked to him right after I moved here. I chatted
Yeah.
with him.
yeah,
So-
yeah. There were. Oh, and here's the other cool thing: when we had Kisses, when we were doing shows at Kisses, I'll
Uh-huh.
tell you these 3 quick things. First thing was Jay Leno came by.
Hey,
Came by our little club in the mall, and I don't think he did time, but he was so nice to us. He's like, "Well, I heard you had a comedy club here, and I'm playing at this place up in St. Pete, and this is, it was just so cool."
yeah,
Another time, we had Jeff Garlin for the weekend.
Jeff.
So Jeff Garlin from Curb Your Enthusiasm, right?
Great. Yeah, and a fantastic comic.
I
Very
had no idea he was that talented to be able to put a sitcom or a comedy half-hour show together. But he had these amazing characters. Dick Magenta was one of his characters, and he would just say things that would basically just cause the comics to fall out, and the
Again,
audiences.
He was a comics would be rolling in the corner in the back of the room.
Right.
he was doing bits about Adam West being hit in a bagel.
Yeah. I think he was doing Adam West having an orgasm. It's kind of like to the back pole, Robin.
Oh, that was me.
Something like that.
That was me. But he
Was that you?
did
Did
the
you
one
do
about
that bit?
Yeah, that was my bit. But he
The
used
variation.
to
Well, he stole it from you then.
hit the head with a bagel and then thinking that he was accepting an award or something.
Okay. All right. I'm misremembering. I'm
Explains
sorry.
it. The audience is looking at him like, what? And then he goes through it, and it's hysterical.
Well, so the third thing was Zach and Mac. I don't know if you ever heard of these guys or worked with them. Zach and Mac. Which is funny because there was also a duo called Mac and Jamie.
Jamie, yeah, I know.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And they were successful as two white guys. Zach and Mac were two guys, African-American guys from St. Louis. And the one guy was 400 pounds and the other guy was bigger than that. I mean, these guys were huge. And they broke the stage at Kisses. Because we had built this, Ronnie and Mark Holland had built this platform that was, I don't know, 18 inches off the floor. And, all the comics jump up on the stage, do the bits, jump off. Well, they walked up on that stage and they're like, just completely
cracked.
Yeah. So that was another fun Kisses memory.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Mark Holland was involved with Kisses?
Yes. So when I started going there,
because he paired up with Paris,
right?
And they did some rooms in side of Florida on the West Coast.
I did all of them, yeah. So when I first went in there, it was Mark was producing the shows, and Ron Bennington was hosting the shows, and he was just as much of a dick back then as he is now. He hadn't changed. I mean, the reason I say he was a dick is because comics generally they want to help each other. Hey, buddy, hey, do this. But his personality was so abrasive that as a 20-year-old kid, I was like, well, that guy doesn't like me. What the hell? And it wasn't that way. It was just his personality.
He was a big radio disc jockey in Clearwater,
right?
On Tampa radio.
Sure.
And I remember going to a party at his house one time.
Yeah.
And he played videos of famous comics that came through his club and they were dying.
Right.
Brian Regan, you mentioned Brian Regan earlier. He was one of them. I never would have thought that Brian Regan would have bit it in a set, but evidently he got a videotape of him in an early set just dying. And he thought that was hysterical. He thought that was funny.
The darkness in it. Brian Regan actually slept on my parents' fold-out sofa because he needed a place to crash when he was in the area. And I also smoked pot with Norm Macdonald in 1992.
Norm Macdonald.
And the reason I mentioned those two things is because I was riding to a gig with this younger comic who was going to introduce me and telling him these stories. And he goes, so your intro, you want it to be Brian Regan slept on his parents' sofa and he smoked pot with Norm Macdonald. I said, sure, whatever. But yeah, that's one thing that I do regret somewhat is that I didn't work with a lot of really big acts. I worked with Steve Harvey, which was great. Thea Vidal, I don't know if you remember her, but I mean, these people that got TV shows and stuff like that. Who's the guy? Oh, Larry Miller. Do you know Larry Miller? He was in the Seinfeld posse, New York comic.
Larry Miller is the guy from Pretty Woman, right?
Yes, exactly.
And Pretty Woman.
Yeah.
Larry Miller. Yes.
Right. Yeah, I opened for him in Cleveland. So yeah, I met some cool people.
Rivera had a children's book that he had people write comical things on the children's book. I don't know if you remember this. I don't know if he but I wrote something in the book and he showed it to Larry Miller later, and Miller went, oh my God, that's hysterical. That's brilliant. And I was like, oh man, that made me. Thank you for telling me that. Thank you.
He was very complimentary. He would go, "Yeah, I like that joke. That's a funny joke."
That's great.
Yeah. I was just thinking of somebody else that I opened for. Robert Townsend. Remember Robert Townsend that did Hollywood Shuffle?
Yeah.
I performed with him. That was cool. Awesome. So I had my share of brushes with greatness. Oh, Rita Rudner told me to change one of my bits because I was going on before her at the Comedy Zone in Memphis, and she didn't like this joke I was doing. She's totally clean.
Right.
So I asked the manager at the club, I'm like, do I have to, hold back? And he goes, no, she's cool. So I used to do this joke about beaver hunt, which was a part of Penthouse magazine, where women would send in Polaroids of themselves.
Right.
So I don't even remember the bit, but the punchline was beaver hunt.
Right.
And so the manager, and she wouldn't even tell me herself, the manager comes over and says, Rita would like you to not do the beaver hunt joke. And so I didn't do it. I follow the rules.
I had a poster for the movie The Wrong Guys.
Yeah.
And I had her sign it. She signed it real small. It was like almost minuscule, very, very tiny. And her comment on that was, right, guys, wrong movie.
Okay. Well, really so funny, though. I mean, so brilliantly funny.
Brilliantly funny.
Yeah.
All right. Well, my gosh, this hour went by very quickly. We went overtime. We went an hour and 6 minutes. Thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
I'll try to get you to come on and surprise Vinny Montello if I can get him to come on the show, maybe.
That would be amazing. Well, you know what would happen if you offered Vinny the show? In 5 minutes later, he would be calling me going, what is this? Why am I doing this? What is it? Who is this guy? Because he doesn't remember anything. He would remember you, but, it's just he's so cynical about everything.
Called in with a couple of guys that were good friends of his. He had written a movie like the De Niro and Pesci were looking at.
I don't know about that, but he did write for TV. He lived in Los Angeles and wrote episodes of the Rugrats. Being told something you say is funny is more life-affirming than helping someone get off drugs. Laughter will always be the best medicine. Oh, that's nice, too. Yeah, you're absolutely right, brother.
Duncan, he watches us from Tasmania in that.
Really?
Yes. He's one of our biggest fans. He watches all of our shows. Thank you, John.
I love it. Well, thank you, Rory. I really appreciate you having me on.
Oh, well, again, I knew it was going to be a good time. I knew I was going to hear some good stories. So I'm glad to hear that you have found your nirvana where you are and your family are living the life. And that sounds great.
Absolutely.
So not living out of a suitcase, going from, gig to gig.
No.
Much better.
Yes, you got it.
So thanks again for coming on, Mike.
All right.
So good to see you again.
Good to see you.
We'll have to get you back.
How do we end this? I don't know what's happening.
Well, I tell Renee, hey, it's time to end the show, Renee.
Okay.
She comes in and
that's what we do. We say good night, everybody. Thank you for joining.